Spoiler alert, as if it's not obvious enough, but this will be a new series on the channel that looks at movies and every weapon used. I think The Town is hands down one of the best robbery heist movies, especially because at least one of the robbers gets away with the crime, which is fairly rare for heist films. But today we will explore all of the mistakes the criminals made in the movie that ended up costing 3 of the robber characters' lives in the story, and why were they so sloppy, dumb, and just didn't choose the best firearms for their missions. Now, obviously I know the writers of The Town purposely did this to allow drama and character deaths, which makes for a great heart-pounding, thrilling movie, but this is just an autistic breakdown analysis for fun and hypothetical purposes. I probably have to say I do not condone bank robbing in real life, so we will focus on the guns used by the robbers. So welcome back to Everything Weapons. Drop a like, and let's just jump right in. And I do want to apologize, guys. I'm a little under the weather, so if I sound a little sniffly, I apologize. But yeah, let's just get right into it. So I think it's in most people's top 5 robbery movies, The Town, from 2010, and I'm glad I saw it when it came out. It's iconic and super memorable for the characters using, of course, the nun costumes during their heist. Now, we will only discuss guns used by the robbers, which include the crew, which consists of the 4 lifelong Boston friends from the Charlestown neighborhood of Boston. And let's just go over the characters real quick. So first is Doug McRae, played by Ben Affleck, and this is the more stable and smartest of the group, and he is the leader of the robbery crew, and Doug wants to leave his life of crime behind after falling for a former hostage. Next up is going to be James, or nickname Jem Coughlin, played by the actor Jeremy Renner, and this is Doug's sideman and hot-tempered best friend who acts as the loose cannon of the group. Next up is Albert, or Glonesy McClone, played by the actor George Carroll, better known as the rapper Slane, and this is the crew's main getaway driver. Next up is Desmond, or Des Eldon, played by the actor Owen Burke, and this is the crew's communications and tech guy who cuts the alarm wires during the heists. And of course we have the criminal boss in the movie, The Town. While not part of the core 4-man mask-wearing robbery crew, they operate under the orders of Fergus, or Fergie Colm, the florist, played by Pete Pottleswaite, and this is the ruthless local Irish mob boss who orchestrates the heists out of his flower shop. So now let's get into the weapons and guns. So what made gunfights feel so good in The Town? It's because both practical and CGI were used. CGI in post, obviously, for enhancing. However, there are substantial arguments for the realism of only practical firearms being used. However, some people prefer the combined digital with practical gunfire effects only because of the cinematic, specific, artistic flair that you get. So it's up to you what you prefer. I'm not totally opposed when watching movies with gun effects using practical and CGI. I'm a fan of, as long as it's not fully CGI, I guess you could say, because that's just, dumb. So, similar to the other robbery movies like Heat, Point Break, and Den of Thieves, the production of The Town 2010 used real firearms, real guns modified to fire blank ammo. So, to capture the extreme realism of the movie's intense heist and shootout sequences, director Ben Affleck chose for actual guns handled under the strict supervision of course, the professional on-set armorers. So the post-production enhancement in the film, while the blanks provided the actors with authentic recoil and sound feedback, the sound design was heavily layered in post-production, obviously, with sound editors adding deeper bass and echo to the gunfire to match the tight urban geometry of the Boston streets, which maximizes the intensity of the cinematic audio. So now let's go over the guns, now that all of that talk is out of the way. So Doug, played by Ben Affleck, is disguised as a police officer, as well as the other crew at some point in the movie, and so they use the standard Glock 17 pistol, and he had to do this since the cops' standard pistol was the Glock 17, so they couldn't really, be holding something in their holster that's not standard issue, because they would have not been blended in. And next up, at some point, a Beretta 92 FS Inox is also seen in the movie, and this Beretta 92 was lying on a table when the FBI agents raid the apartment of Henry Brian Scandal. So, I want to, in this video, guys, kind of exclude weapons seen in production photos and or deleted scenes of the town, because they just don't really matter since they didn't make it to the final cut. So there are a bunch of guns that are seen, but they didn't make it in the final movie. So next up, H&K USP Compact. So Jem, played by Jeremy Renner, uses a Heckler & Koch USP Compact to commit a murder during a flashback sequence. Next up, we have the Ruger KP90. So Jem brandishes what appears to be a Ruger KP90 when he confronts Doug outside a cemetery. And it is seen in the back of his waistband, and then he uses it to pistol whip his friend after they get into a fist fight, if you remember that scene. So next up, we have the Smith & Wesson 1911 PD, and this is used by Fergie the florist, which is played by the actor Pete Postlethwaite. I think I'm saying that correctly. So this Smith & Wesson 1911 PD is used by Fergie when he opens fire during Doug's attack at the end of the film. And then next up, we also have the Smith & Wesson Model 38. So when Jem, Jeremy Renner, and Doug, Ben Affleck, go to the house of the Latino thugs who were harassing Claire Kesey, played by actress Rebecca Hall earlier, Jem uses what appears to be a Smith & Wesson Model 38 to threaten one of the Latino thugs and shoot him in the legs, and then they scatter cocaine all over the house to make it look like a drug deal gone wrong. So the Smith & Wesson Model 38 is just an aluminum alloy framed version of the Model 49 38 Special. Next up, we also see in the town the Winchester Model 1300 Defender, and Rusty, played by Dennis McLaughlin, pulls out a Winchester Model 1300 Defender from under a drawer when Doug confronts Fergie, the florist, inside the floral shop at the end of the film. Next up, let's discuss submachine guns, or machine pistols used in the movie. So, of course, iconic Tech 9 Intratec. So Jem fires at Frawley with a Tech 9 concealed under his jacket, and what's cool is in the movie they included the jungle-style double mags taped together, which is very cool that they even featured this in the movie, because I think it's like fairly rare for movies. I feel like most of the time you don't see jungle mags, so that's really cool. I like how they added that. But today we're going to be discussing later what weapons I think they should have used, because the Tech 9, as if you didn't know, is generally not considered reliable because it's known more for its 1990s pop culture infamy than performance in real life. So it is widely plagued by feeding as well as extraction issues and requires frequent maintenance to function, which is really not good if you're a bank robber. Now, key reasons for its unreliability. So the design changes. Originally an open bolt submachine gun, it was redesigned to a closed bolt semi-automatic to be legally sold in the US, which heavily disrupted its internal mechanisms and reliability. But in the film, this isn't really relevant because it's probably just an original full auto, but the Tech 9 still has magazine issues because the proprietary magazines are notoriously finicky. Many owners find the Tech 9 gun jams frequently, very commonly, unless paired with a specific working magazine. And the Tech 9 also has loose tolerances because it's made with very inexpensive stamped steel and molded polymer, making a loose fit and finish, which is highly susceptible to dirt and debris. So next up in the movie, we also see the MAC-10 Imgrim, open bolt submachine gun, 45 ACP, and Desmond Des Elden, played by Owen Burke, is briefly seen wielding a MAC-10 during the car chase scene in Charlestown. And the MAC-10s in the film have the folding stocks removed, which is quite interesting, as well as they don't have the little foregrip piece of fabric that is seen in the Dark Knight movie during that bank robbery opening scene, which is quite interesting. So the robbers just took off the stock and foregrip, perhaps to make it just quicker and less easier to use. But next up, we also see a HNK UMP, which is very cool, very iconic. It reminds me of like MW2. And this is carried by Doug during the first opening bank robbery scene in the film. So UMP is also seen. Pretty cool. Next up, we also see an HNK MP5 SD3 with a Navy trigger group and as well as dual magazines, jungle style taped. And this is carried by Dez, played by Owen Burke, at the beginning of the Fenway Park shootout scene in the film. So next up, we also see in the movie a DSA SA-58 OSW carbine with dual magazines taped jungle style during the shootout with FBI agents and Boston police at the Fenway Park little bit of the movie. And if you didn't know, the DSA SA-58 OSW carbine is just 7.62 NATO cartridge. And next up, we also see the M4A1 carbine in the film during the first bank heist, and Gem uses it. It's just standard with no added features and has basic rounded handguards. Next up, we also see in the town HNK 416D, and this is used by Doug, and he also has jungle-styled mags. And this has a 10-inch barrel for his HK416D, and if you didn't know, it's 5.56 NATO, and this was during the armored car heist, and as well as later in the film, the 416 appears because Jem uses it during the Fenway Park shootout when he uses up all two of the mags of his AKMS. And in a continuity error, actually, which is very interesting, we actually see Jem switch back and forth to his AKMS when reloading, and when it was empty, then he grabs an HK416D. And during the opening bank robbery scene, Dez carries a SIG SG 551 assault rifle, which is 5.56, which is pretty cool. And next up, which is a little uncommon for movies, which I'm happy they added, is a Micro Galil 5.56, and this is carried by Glonzy in the opening bank robbery heist scene, and the Micro Galil is used by Glonzy, and it appears to have a rail forearm, and as well is fitted with a C-bore sight. So this is a fairly unusual gun. I'm happy they added it in the town, and it's just a interesting weapon, Micro Galil. You don't really see them in movies too much, so that was a good decision there. Now, during the armored car heist, Jem, played by Jeremy Renner, uses an RIS-equipped AKM-SU carbine to wound an agitated guard trying to use Doug as a human shield, and later uses it to fire at the Boston PD officers that pursue him. And when two police cruisers manage to finally corner them with a pit maneuver, an officer orders them to get out of the car, and Jem releases a large burst of the AKM-SU, spraying up the police cars with bullet holes and also destroying the engine blocks, sending the officers scrambling for cover. Next up, we also see a shortened AKM-S rifle, and this is used by Jem to shoot at the FBI SWAT agents during the beginning of the Fenway Park shootout, until he empties the weapon and switches to his HK-416. So, next up in the movie, this is a very interesting one. Albert Glonzy McLone is armed with an AKU-94 bullpup rifle with a red dot sight during the Fenway Park shootout, and this is a very weird decision, weird gun. You don't see it too often in films, and the usual drawbacks to the platform of the AKU-94 bullpup are the usual nasty, gritty trigger, and it has difficult magazine changes, and it also only has a right hand only function. And let's just break down the main errors and mistakes of the weapon choice. So, if the robber characters are able to get these weapons, they are more than capable of getting suppressors, smoke grenades, explosives, or at least even just making their own smoke grenades or explosives, or even Molotov cocktails, right? So that's my main gripe with the movie, I guess. And if we have to break down the town with their decisions, this is what we're going to be getting into. But yeah, I'm really happy they added the AKU-94 because you don't see it that often. I think it's really beneficial when movies just feature like weapons that we haven't seen too often. But now let's go all into the weapon and gun decisions of the robbers and the characters in the film, right? So I think that the Boston crew of bank heisters needed or should have obtained all of these things I'm about to list. So first off, they really needed heavier body armor under their uniforms of the EMTs and police uniforms that they stole and used for their robberies. Now, they do wear vests in the movie because I think like Glonzy, I'm pretty sure, gets shot and survives near the end of the movie, and at least they had something. But let's be realistic, if you're bank robbing, you're going to want the most body armor possible, because they're all fairly fit guys. I mean, I guess Glonzy was a little fat, but it's like if you're robbing a bank, I think you could just go fully hard, right? Full wing half, and just have very impressive body armor. They could have just layered a bunch of level 3, level 4 body armor plates, or they could have just made like their own custom body armor. They could have used like titanium plates to make it even more ridiculous. And next up, I think the Boston crew all should have used the highest quality AK platform rifles that can withstand the most continuous firing. And I think this is just for robberies. This is just hands down the best choice, as the AK platform can withstand the most shots just continuously, right? We see all of the meltdown videos on YouTube, so I think it's just the best choice for bank robbers to use, just because they chose all of these guns that perhaps might not have been able to shoot as long as AK. And they definitely needed way more ammo, because that's what costed Jeremy Renner's character to die, unfortunately. Right, so because he ran out of ammo. Very bad mistake there. Next up, they all should have had suppressors, I feel like, because it's like, why the heck wouldn't you? Yes, they don't last long. However, in public daytime heists, I think it's totally worth it for the characters to choose this. And maybe even flashlights and, big flashlights, powerful, even like a bunch of lasers on their guns to blind the cops, would have been interesting and could have been a tactical advantage for the Boston criminals. Next up, I think the robbers in the town all should have had, of course, smoke grenades for evasion distraction purposes. Super easy to make, homemade, and they could have made like ridiculously large and even quick smoke grenades combined with gas masks and night vision goggles. And I don't know, I just thought about this towards the end of the movie, like their last firefights. I think they really could have had this, even though they're cornered, it still, I feel like, could have saved 3 of the 4, because only Ben Affleck lives, right? Next up, they should have had explosives, either real grenades, or even the characters could have tried to acquire a Milcore MGL grenade launcher, or even underbarrel on their AKs would be most ideal, but even then they could have easily made homemade bombs if they weren't able to get real ones. But it's like they were able to get all of these guns, so it's like, how would they not be able to get like grenade launchers or just noob tubes, because it's like they're legal in some states in America, but they are criminals. But they could have just known someone that had them, or like bribed someone, right? So I think that was a little silly. But during the last heist, they should have had a near indestructible bulletproof vehicle. And this is like a common trope in robbery bank heist movies. We never see the characters use like an insanely powerful getaway car, right? It's kind of like one of those things that is always written in these robbery films. We saw it with Heat. They just use like a normal car and it gets like the tires blown out instantly. Same in The Town. But like, if the characters had just took the time, right, to make indestructible tires, and even like they could have attached a cow catcher, also called a V-plow, which is a sloped metal wedge on the front of their getaway vehicle, designed to lift and push objects and potentially flip or tip them out of the way, right? But if they weren't as greedy and actually invested in better firearms, weapons, and the getaway car, they could have had better chances at surviving all of their robberies in the film, I think. But let me know what you think. Next up, I think the crew could have benefited using gasoline or some kind of flammable liquid on the floors and random vehicles parked nearby. to create even more chaos, right? We don't see them do this. Yes, it's really hard to do, and how would have they carried it? I think they could have like hid it somewhere super weird in public to access it before the firefight or even during it, but that would have been really interesting if they just like, just like set random nearby cars parked on the Boston streets, and even when they're like pinned down and cornered and trapped in the end of the movie in the last firefights, like I think they really could have made like a wall of fire to help them escape or something. But next up, I think they could have used some kind of homemade ballistic shields as well. And yes, I know that they were trying to be sneaky with the cop and EMT uniforms, obviously, but I still think they could have like hid it somewhere super weird, and could have like, just found the hiding spot and picked it up and grabbed it. Because I know obviously they couldn't have just walked in with a giant gas tanks and shields, but would have easily avoided them from being hit and shot during their firefights, right? If they just had some form of shield. We don't see that too much in robbery movies. It happens in some movies, but but I think the town overall is still an excellent story, and there's just something visually appealing and thrilling of the sloppiness of the tactics and firearms used in the movie by the heisters, and they probably just, the writers did this on purpose, right? It just visually looks awesome to see no suppressors, I guess, and it would have been interesting because they could have had like bigger battle rifles, or even like they could have had like another crew guy be a sniper outside, and I think that really would have helped the characters in the movie get away with the last heist if they had a sniper just picking off the Boston PD and police officers. But the main character in the movie, Doug McRae, played by the actor Ben Affleck, got extremely lucky and basically only survives because of the distraction of the FBI special agent, Adam Frawley, played by actor John Hamm, finding and pursuing James Jen Coughlin towards the end of the film. So Doug just dodged a bullet there, and he barely makes it out, but it's extremely well written, and I'm just breaking down like the weapon choices, right, just for fun hypothetical purposes, right? But at the same time, I would love in the future for us to see a robbery type movie film to include the best weapons and getaway vehicle choices for the characters, right? I don't know about you guys, but it would just be really, I think it would make for like a crazy good movie if the characters just have sufficient firepower and they just completely overwhelm the police with insane explosives, smoke grenades, and just superior weapons, right? And I guess with the town, they had to really blend in, so they couldn't have insane juggernaut-like suits and with a crap ton of ammo, crap ton of armor on each of the crew members during the heists. But I don't know. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching. Smash the like button. A thumbs up is greatly appreciated. Type us a comment down below of what you thought about the episode and this video, and also comment any video ideas you have for me. And I appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, ring the bell, that way you don't miss any future videos that I post, as well as take a look at the older content on the channel. Lots of videos to binge watch. And again, this will be like a kind of a mini series breaking down movies. I mostly want to do like robbery, bank heist type movies, but we might do others. Breaking down like the weapons used, as well as how good the choices were, right? And if they could have used better stuff. So until next time, I'll see you guys later. Take care.